Here now, Roy Sekoff from the Huffington Post, Air America radio host and MSNBC political analyst Rachel Maddow, and syndicated columnist and former Reagan speechwriter Tony Blankley. All right, Roy, let me start with you. I mean, the whole narrative today is Clinton went negative and it worked. How do we know? How do you know that it went negative and it worked?
Dan, I absolutely love the dissatisfaction. Earlier this week, you were convinced that if Hillary won, the media still wouldn't give her credit. Well, she won
by a little.
Well, they won. They gave her credit. But now it's the wrong kind of credit, right? It's the wrong kind of credit. Let's face it. This is what she ran on. She ran on, I'm a fighter. I've already taken a shot. I've been bloodied by the RNC. And so the voters vote. It went that way. They may have bought it. So why did you suddenly say, well, I want her to be inspirational? No, I want her to bow down and say she's just the most beautiful candidate.
I don't want them to say that, but I don't want them to conclude, Rachel, that Hillary Clinton won this because she went negative without any evidence. I mean, the only evidence that's been cited is the fact that undecided voters, were something like 21% of them, in the last few days went for Clinton. And, you know, so what? So that means that the negative ads were the reason?
Well, I mean, I think it seems pretty clear that the reason that Hillary Clinton won last night is because she ran a really good campaign after Wisconsin, and that really good campaign included some really negative Republican-style attacks on Barack Obama. That was the stuff she did that was most controversial. Appearing on Saturday Night Live was neat, and it might have had just as big an effect, but it's not going to get as much coverage because it was those nasty attacks on Obama that are the most unsettling for Democratic voters.
But I mean, unsettling, I mean, welcome to the general election. Yeah. I mean, they can hate them all they want, but if Obama can't survive them now, how can he possibly survive them in the general election?
To the extent that it's probing his defenses and seeing whether or not he's going to be able to stand up to McCain and the Republican attack machine, great. To the extent that it's fear-mongering and be afraid, vote for me, I think Democrats are grossed out by it, and it's rightfully controversial.
Yeah, but Tony, everyone says they're grossed out by these negative ads. Everyone says, you know what, I hate them, and yet they seem to work. But again, it seems to me that all the pundits want to say, and I think Rachel's analysis is very fair, what she just said, but a lot of people out there want to say it's because she went negative. That's the reason that she won. And yet when Obama wins, it's all about his speeches and the number of people at his rallies.
Well, I don't know what people are talking about. Obama failed to respond honestly to the Canadian TV and AP report regarding his NAFTA conversations. He failed to respond effectively to the Tony story coming out of Chicago, the corrupt person.
Yeah, but
Resco.
You really think that those things?
He failed.
Honestly, a misstatement on NAFTA. I mean, let's be clear. You think a misstatement on NAFTA and whether a Canadian TV report was accurate is what made the difference in Ohio and Texas?
I'm going to list a number of things. I think he was kind of sitting on his lead. He wasn't taking things seriously. He didn't address the economic issue, which is so powerful in Ohio, where Hillary was. And on top of that, he campaigned illogically. He went to Rhode Island on Saturday for no good reason. He spent too much time in Ohio, where he didn't have as much of a chance, and didn't spend enough time in Texas. But more fundamentally, I don't think, and God knows I'm no fan of Hillary's, but I don't think that the red telephone ad is a particularly negative ad. All it said was, "Who do you trust in a crisis?"
I actually agree with you.
Let me give you a couple examples.
Wait, hang on, Tony. I don't want to get into a list here. So let me read you again. And Roy, I'll give you a chance because I know. Look, I agree with Tony that I don't think this ad is such a big deal. And I think if everyone's going to be so sensitive, welcome to the general election, and you're going to be bombarded with stuff.
It's a huge deal.
A huge deal in what sense?
It is a huge deal because, listen, there's a difference between Democrats and Republicans. If we've learned one thing from George Bush, it's that Republicans believe that politicians ought to encourage Americans to cower in fear. The Democratic paradigm of leadership when the country is threatened is FDR in 1941 saying freedom from fear.
Why is it fear to say when it's 3 a.m., who do you want to pick up the phone?
No, she never argued. What was that ad? That ad was feel afraid. Here's the ringing phone. No. Your kids might not be safe. I'm the candidate.
Why
There's
can't it
no
be,
argument. There was no argument in that ad.
Oh no, I will argue that there's nothing in that ad that says anything more than who do you want to pick up the phone? Sure, the answer is something bad has happened.
Something's bad has happened. Vote for me.
Oh my goodness! Honestly, if you guys can't deal with that kind of ad, there are going to be enormous problems.
There's going to be
in the
ads
general
like that.
election.
But you know what? This is an argument that's being fought as well as an election, and that's fighting it on Republican terms, saying that Americans ought to be afraid.
You're saying the primary should be based on principle.
No,
the primary should be on principle.
The primaries ought to be about winning the argument and about damning Bush-McCain Republicanism, and instead they're saying we're just like the Republicans. We want you to be afraid. afraid.
And Roy,
you ought to not be a Democratic candidate.
Yeah, but Roy, look, and the Saturday Night Live skit, and not just the skit, Hillary Clinton appearing on Saturday Night Live, her effort to portray herself as the fighter. Maybe Rachel's not entirely right that Democrats may want a fighter going into the general election. Maybe they want someone who's ready to take on McCain and throw these kinds of ads. Maybe they know what's come at them year after year. Maybe they remember 2004 and they say, we're not going to let it happen again. We want someone who's going to battle back.
Okay, but you're unhappy even if that is the case. You know, all hail Jon Stewart, all hail Amy Poehler, fine. But why are you so upset that the coverage is saying that she was fighting? That she was.
I'm saying,
look at her main talking points.
You asked me a question. You asked me why am I so upset? I'm upset because they're necessarily attributing that to her victory. The headline in Politico's front page: Clinton's lesson, attacking Obama works. The LA Times front page: going negative proved positive in comeback. They don't know that to be true. Those are assumptions.
But Dan, here's the thing. Hillary Clinton didn't suddenly poof, abracadabra, turn into a different candidate. She's been running for a year. So you tell me what changed.
Okay, all right, I'll tell you.
What was different this week?
Okay, I'll tell you what was different. First of all, you had the fact that she went on these comedy shows. She went on Jon Stewart. She went on Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live spoofed the media coverage, etc. She also has tried to portray herself as the one who's ready to fight. Why is it not possible? But again, and you know what else, Roy? The polls were not so different from what the results were. So it's not like there's been this major transformation in the last couple of days that, lo and behold, Hillary Clinton's numbers were so different. It's just that many pundits simply can't fathom the idea of giving her any credit.
Here's what's been different this time. Time after time after time, voters who made their decision in the last 3 days went for Obama. Not this time. Not this time. So what was different? Was it Hillary on 60 Minutes saying, well, as far as I know, he's not a Muslim? Yeah, was it Hillary saying, hey, John McCain has more experience. Obama gave one speech in 2002. We have to look. What was different? That's what was different this time.
Tony, go ahead.
I was going to say, look, among the things that I think you have to pay some attention to is the fact that Obama ran, I think, a very weak campaign in the last 2 weeks of this election. The other piece is the pundits were calling for Hillary to resign before the election. And I think what I've heard, there are a lot of middle-aged women who supported Hillary who were angry at the pundit class for saying that she should step down before the race is even over.
So the media helped her, Dan. The media helped her.
Look, let me read
inadvertently.
This is the unfair attack. This is the exit polling, all right? Who attacked their opponent unfairly? This is from Ohio and Texas. 54% in Ohio said Hillary Clinton, 52% in Texas, 37% for Obama, 35% in Texas. So there's no question, Rachel, that the voters viewed Hillary's attacks as more unfair, and yet they still voted for her.
Sure, negative attacks work. I mean,
but it's not often people are honest. I mean, usually, right? I mean, it's always people say, oh, they don't, you know, I don't care about them, you know.
Well, they say, I don't like them and they don't affect me, but then they do exactly what those ads tell them to do. We don't believe that we're being swayed by any form of advertising, let alone the kind that turns our stomachs, but it drives our behavior.
There's something sort of paternalistic about everyone in the media saying, well, you know, the voters, they don't want to admit it, but the reality is it's all because of the negative ads.
But it's kind of a reverse Bradley effect, right? You don't come out of the poll and say, yeah, you know what, that thing that he might be a Muslim, that's really what got me. Or, you know, I was really afraid, so I voted my lizard brain. I let that poll leave her.
So the bottom line is, according to Roy Sekoff, the voters of Ohio and Texas are liars. And that's the bottom line.
No, they don't know that's why they're doing it.
The unconscious is a powerful thing, Dan. The unconscious is a powerful thing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Rachel's going to stick